My fiancée and her family mocked my dead mother during engagement dinner, so I canceled everything publicly, sold the ring, and left them humiliated forever. I'm a 30-year-old man, and for most of my life, I've believed that love isn't just between two people. It's between families. That's something my mom used to tell me before she passed away. She'd say, when you marry someone, you don't just take their hand, you take their world too. Those words stuck with me, even long after she was gone. I met Clara when I was 27. We were introduced through mutual friends at a friend's housewarming party. She had this calm, grounded energy, the kind that fills a quiet room without trying. There was something in the way she listened, how her eyes softened when I mentioned my mom, that made me believe she understood loss. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I could build something real again. Clara's family, on the other hand, was polite at best. Her father was reserved, her mother was overly formal, and her younger brother seemed to find everything mildly amusing, including me. But I didn't mind. I told myself people just needed time. I thought if they saw how much I loved their daughter, they'd eventually welcome me in. I still remember the first time I brought flowers for Clara's mom. She smiled, said thank you, and handed them to a maid before turning back to her phone. I laughed it off, telling myself not to take things personally. I wanted to be patient. Love, after all, was supposed to bridge gaps, not widen them. Looking back, maybe that's where I went wrong. I kept trying to prove I was worthy of a family that never planned to see me as one of their own. But at that time, I didn't know that. I just knew I'd found a woman who made me believe again, and I had no idea how cruelly that belief would be tested. When Clara and I got engaged, it felt like everything I'd worked for. Every lonely night, every heartbreak and deal had finally been worth it. She cried when I proposed, and for a moment, I thought I'd given her the happiness she deserved. We spent weeks planning the engagement dinner, arguing over flower colors, laughing about seating charts, and dreaming about a future that now feels like someone else's memory. I wanted everything to be perfect. My mom used to collect jewelry, and before she passed, she left me a few pieces for when you find the right one. I sold one of her gold necklaces to help buy Clara the ring she'd been eyeing. It was a simple diamond, elegant and understated, just like her. When I showed it to my best friend, he said, "Man, that's a serious ring." I smiled, proud. "She's worth it," I said without hesitation. But not everyone saw it that way. At dinner one night, Clara's father joked, "Guess our daughter really landed herself a romantic. Hope he can afford the honeymoon after that rock." Her brother laughed, and Clara just rolled her eyes. I brushed it off, forcing a chuckle, telling myself they didn't mean any harm. That became a pattern. The subtle digs, the small humiliations that came wrapped in just jokes. Her mother would say things like, "Your mom raised you well, at least she did that right." Every time, I swallowed the discomfort and told myself love required compromise. Clara promised me her family would come around. "They just need to know you better," she'd say, kissing my hand. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Because when someone makes you feel seen after years of grief, you cling to it. You ignore the warning signs. You convince yourself love can heal even what respect cannot. But I was about to learn. Some families don't want bridges. They want control. The engagement dinner was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. I'd spent weeks saving, planning, and perfecting every detail, from the candle arrangements to the playlist that featured my mom's favorite old songs. It was Clara's family's idea to host it at an upscale restaurant. They said it would be classy. I told myself it would be the perfect night to finally feel like part of their world. When I arrived, everyone was already seated. Clara looked beautiful. Her hair curled softly, the ring I'd chosen glittering under the warm lights. I brought something small with me that night, a framed photo of my mother. I placed it beside Clara's seat quietly, just so she could be present in some way. My mom always dreamed of seeing me get engaged. That photo felt like a piece of her sitting there with me. At first, the dinner went smoothly. Toasts, smiles, polite small talk. But halfway through the evening, Clara's brother noticed the photo. He squinted, then grinned. "Is that your ghost mom watching us eat?" Laughter broke around the table. Clara's father chuckled, her mother covered her mouth, and even Clara. Even she giggled. I froze. My fork hung mid-air. My chest tightened so hard it hurt to breathe. For a moment I thought I'd misheard, that surely no one would say something like that. But then her brother kept going. "Hey, maybe she's judging the wine choice, huh?" The sound of their laughter blurred into white noise. My pulse thudded in my ears. Clara leaned toward me, smiling awkwardly. "Babe, it's just a joke. Don't make it weird. A joke." That's what my mother's memory was reduced to. A punchline. I wanted to walk out right then. But all I did was sit there staring at the photo, wondering when love had started to feel this humiliating. And deep down, something in me cracked that night. Quietly, but permanently. I don't remember tasting a single bite of food after that moment. The laughter around me faded into a low hum, like static underwater. I just sat there, rigid, holding my napkin so tightly my knuckles turned white. Clara's brother was still smirking, her parents whispering and chuckling, like they'd shared some private joke I wasn't meant to understand. Inside, I felt something split, that small, fragile faith that love could fix everything. Still, I forced myself to smile. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. My mom used to tell me, "Never let people who mock kindness see you lose your grace." So I held on to my composure, even when my insides were screaming. When the waiter came to refill our glasses, Clara's mother glanced at my mom's picture and said casually, "You know, dear, you should be grateful. You've got a new family now." The table erupted again. My throat burned. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, my face hot and trembling. I looked at Clara. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. Her hand rested on her wine glass, not on mine. That was when I realized she wasn't uncomfortable. She was indifferent. I excused myself under the pretense of a phone call. As I stepped outside, the night air hit me like ice. The streetlights blurred, my reflection in the restaurant window barely recognizable. A man trying to look strong while something inside him was quietly dying. I stood there for several minutes, staring at my phone, pretending to scroll, pretending to breathe. I didn't know if I should go back in, cause a scene, or just vanish. In the end, I did the one thing I never thought I would. I left. Without a word, without an explanation. Just walked into the dark, leaving the laughter behind, and as the door closed, I swore I heard my mother's voice. "You don't need to stay where love feels like shame." The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Clara had called 6 times before I finally picked up. Her voice was chipper, like nothing had happened. "Babe, last night was amazing, wasn't it?" Everyone loved the dinner. I said nothing at first. Then I asked, as calmly as I could, "You really think mocking my mother was amazing?" There was a long pause. Then came the sigh. "Oh my God, you're still upset about that? It was just a joke. You're being way too sensitive." That word, sensitive, it hit harder than any insult. I'd spent years holding myself together after my mom's death, learning to live without her warmth. And now, the woman I loved was telling me my pain was inconvenient. I tried to explain and that it wasn't about a joke, it was about respect, about decency. But she kept interrupting, her tone dripping with annoyance. "My family didn't mean anything by it. You always take things too personally. Can't you just move on?" My voice broke when I said, "Would you laugh if they said that about your dad?" She went quiet for a moment, then coldly said, "My dad's alive. This isn't the same thing." Something inside me just snapped. The air around me felt heavy, the room shrinking with every heartbeat. I realized I'd been loving someone who could step on my grief and call it humor. Someone who thought my mother's memory was disposable. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stared at my phone, her name flashing again and again. An hour later, a text came from my friend who'd been at the dinner. "Bro, that was messed up. I would have walked out, too." That message hit me like a wake-up call. For the first time, I saw it clearly. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being disrespected, and once you finally see disrespect for what it is, you can't unsee it. 2 days passed with silence between us. I thought maybe space would help, that Clara would reflect and realize how much that night hurt me. But instead, I got something I never expected. Proof that everything I'd feared was worse than I imagined. That afternoon, I got a message from Clara's cousin, Jenna, someone I barely knew. "Hey," she wrote, "I probably shouldn't be sending this, but you deserve to see it." Attached were screenshots of a group chat titled Engagement Chaos, a chat that included Clara, her brother, and both parents. The first message was from her brother. "Hope Ghost Mommy approves of the menu." Then Clara replied, "Stop, you'll make him cry." Her mom added, "At least he's polite. Too polite. He'll never stand up to anyone." I just stared at my phone. My hands went numb. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. The woman I loved, the one I defended, had been mocking me with them. All the harmless jokes were rehearsed cruelty shared behind my back for laughs. I called Clara immediately. She didn't deny it. She just groaned. "Who sent you that?" Jenna always stirs drama. I could hear her brother laughing in the background. "Oh, come on, man, don't tell me you're crying again." I felt heat rush to my face. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear her voice. "You mocked my dead mother, Clara," I said quietly. "You all did," she sighed. "You're overreacting. You really need to toughen up if you're joining this family." That was the moment everything inside me went still. No more excuses. No more pretending this was love. I didn't hang up out of anger. I hung up out of clarity, because for the first time, I knew exactly what I needed to do next, and it wouldn't be forgiveness. After that call, something in me changed. The anger didn't burn hot anymore. It went cold, quiet, deliberate. I stopped trying to make her understand. I stopped begging for decency. Instead, I started planning. Clara texted later that evening, acting like nothing had happened. "Can we please not ruin the engagement announcement?" She wrote. "My family's expecting pictures this weekend." I stared at the message for a long time, my pulse steady but heavy. I typed back, "Of course, I'll be there." She didn't know I'd already saved every screenshot, every message. Jenna had even sent me a voice note of Clara laughing about how emotional guys are exhausting. Each piece of evidence burned into me like fuel, not for revenge yet, but for something bigger, closure on my terms. The next few days I became a ghost in my own life. I went to work, came home, and replayed everything in my head. The way Clara looked at me that night, the way her family sneered, the way I sat there trying to be composed while they disrespected the one person I'd loved most. And yet, I stayed calm. I smiled when Clara called. I said all the right words. "I can't wait for the announcement. It'll be great. Your family means a lot to me." Lies, all of them, but necessary ones. My mom always said, "There's strength in silence. Let people think you're weak while you gather your truth." That's exactly what I was doing. By the time the weekend rolled around, Clara's family thought everything was fine, that I'd moved on, forgiven, forgotten. But I hadn't forgotten a thing. I was just waiting for the right moment to make sure they'd never forget either. The weekend came faster than I expected. Clara's family insisted on hosting the official engagement celebration at their home. A sprawling villa with a marble staircase and chandeliers that screamed wealth and ego. Everyone was invited, relatives, friends, colleagues, even my best friend Sam, who'd seen the dinner disaster unfold. When I arrived, Clara greeted me with a smile so bright it could have fooled anyone. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Thank you for being mature about everything." Mature? That word felt like poison on my skin. Still, I smiled back, slipping into the role she expected, the polite, forgiving fiancé. The party was loud, filled with laughter and wine glasses clinking. Clara's father shook my hand, saying, "Good to see no hard feelings, son." I just nodded. If only he knew. I'd already made sure the right people were there. Not just friends, but people who respected my mother. People who knew what she meant to me. Sam had helped quietly spread the word that something special might happen tonight. As the evening went on, Clara's family basked in attention, bragging about the upcoming wedding. Her mother gushed about finally gaining a son. Her brother winked and joked, "Hope the ghost mom gives her blessing." A few guests looked uncomfortable, but Clara laughed, tossing her hair like she was above it all. That's when I felt it, the calm before the storm. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't tremble. I knew what I was about to do, and there was no turning back. I reached into my pocket, feeling the weight of my phone. The proof, the messages, the screenshots. I could almost hear my mother's voice whisper, "Stand up for yourself, sweetheart." So I waited. Waited for the right moment, the right insult, the right audience, and when it came, I would make sure they understood what real humiliation felt like. It happened right after dinner. The music had quieted, guests were sipping champagne, and Clara's father stood up to give a toast. His words dripped with smug pride. To my daughter and to her fiancé, who were lucky enough to call family. Even his dear late mother would be proud. I'm sure she's watching right now. Laughter. Actual laughter. Her brother clinked his glass and added, "Yeah, maybe she's hovering above the dessert table, huh?" That was it. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped against the marble floor, silencing the room. Every eye turned toward me. Clara's smile faltered for the first time all night. I spoke calmly, my voice carrying through the room. You know, I was told love meant joining a family, but I didn't realize it meant joining a comedy show at my mother's expense. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. I unlocked my phone and tapped the microphone icon, projecting my voice through the Bluetooth speaker I'd connected earlier. Then I played the recording Jenna had sent me. Clara, laughing with her family. "Stop, you'll make him cry," followed by her mother's voice. "At least he's polite. Too polite to stand up to anyone." Gasps filled the room. Clara's face drained of color. Her brother muttered, "What the—" But I cut him off. "You mocked a dead woman who raised me alone. You mocked the only person who ever taught me what respect means." I turned to Clara. "You let them, and you joined in." Clara stammered, It was a joke. You can't just—" I interrupted, my tone icy. "You're right. I can't joke about love or loyalty or my mother. But you can, and that's why this ends tonight." I slipped the ring off her finger and placed it on the table beside her untouched glass of wine. The diamond gleamed under the chandelier, sharp, cold, final. Then I looked around the room, meeting every stunned face. "You all wanted a show. Congratulations. Now you're in one." And with that, I turned and walked out into the silence I'd been denied for far too long. The moment I stepped outside, the night hit me like a wave of static. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, it all blurred behind me, replaced by the dull roar of blood in my ears. I'd done it. I'd exposed them. But instead of relief, all I felt was hollow. I stood in the driveway, hands shaking, breathing hard. The villa lights glowed behind me like a stage I'd just burned down. For a few seconds, I questioned everything. Had I gone too far? Should I have just walked away quietly? Then I heard the door burst open. Clara came running out, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "How could you humiliate me like that?" she shouted. "You ruined my family's night." I turned slowly. I ruined it. My voice cracked, years of swallowed emotion spilling through. "You laughed at my dead mother, Clara. You all did." She flinched but didn't back down. "It was one joke. You didn't have to destroy everything over it." Destroy everything. That's what she called it. Not betrayal, not cruelty, just inconvenience. Her father stepped outside too, puffed up with rage. "You embarrassed my family, son. You'll regret this." I let out a bitter laugh. I already regret something. Ever thinking I could be part of it. They shouted more. Insults, justifications, even pity disguised as anger. But I wasn't listening anymore. I just walked to my car, every step heavier than the last. By the time I shut the door and started the engine, the tears finally came. Not from heartbreak, from exhaustion. From realizing that all those years of loyalty, patience, and love had been wasted on people who never even saw me as human. That night, I sat in my parked car for hours. The city lights blurred through the windshield. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly, completely alone. It wasn't the betrayal that broke me. It was the silence that followed, the kind that only comes when you realize no one in the room ever cared. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Missed calls, unread messages, and dozens of notifications. Clara had already started spinning her version of the story. Posts about being humiliated in front of family. Vague quotes about toxic men who can't handle jokes. Her friends flooded the comments with sympathy. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened the small box where I'd kept her engagement ring. It looked different now. Not like a promise, but like a reminder of every boundary I'd let her cross. I took a deep breath, listed it online, and within hours, it was sold. I transferred a portion of the money to a charity that helped single parents who'd lost spouses. My mom would have liked that. The rest, I donated anonymously to a hospice in her memory. Then, I made a single post. No names, no insults, just truth. Never mock someone's dead loved one. You'll lose more than respect. You'll lose everything. I attached a blurred screenshot of the group chat, the messages still visible enough to sting. By nightfall, it went viral. People recognized Clara's words, her brother's jokes. Mutual friends started connecting the dots, calling them out publicly. The same people who'd laughed at me were now deleting comments, hiding behind private accounts, pretending innocence. Clara called me 30 times that night. When I finally picked up, her voice was trembling. "You destroyed us," I said quietly. "No, Clara. You destroyed yourself the moment you laughed." There was silence, then muffled crying. I didn't stay to listen. I ended the call and blocked her number for good. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter. The noise was gone. No more fake apologies, no more justifications, just peace. Revenge didn't feel loud or fiery. It felt quiet, clean, like walking away from a burning house knowing you didn't start the fire, you just refused to die in it. Weeks passed, and life slowly settled into something unfamiliar. Peace. The constant buzz of anxiety that used to live in my chest was gone. My phone, once filled with Clara's messages and her family's passive-aggressive texts, stayed silent. For the first time in a long while, that silence felt like freedom, not loneliness. I started focusing on work again, on rebuilding routines I'd abandoned while trying to prove myself to people who never deserved it. Sam checked in often, always ending our calls with the same line. "Man, your mom would be proud." Every time he said it, it hit deeper. One quiet Sunday morning, I drove to the cemetery with a single sunflower, my mom's favorite. The sky was overcast, the kind that makes colors look softer, gentler. I sat beside her grave, tracing her name with my fingers. "You were right, Mom," I whispered. "Love isn't supposed to hurt. It's supposed to honor." For a while, I just sat there, listening to the wind rustling through the trees. And for the first time since that dinner, I felt something warm. Not from anyone else, but from within. I realized I didn't need an apology or validation. I'd already taken back what mattered most, my dignity. When I got home later that day, I checked my inbox. Dozens of strangers had messaged me after my post went viral, people sharing their own stories of disrespect, grief, and standing up for themselves. One message stood out. "You helped me walk away from someone who mocked my pain. Thank you." That's when it hit me. Maybe my story wasn't just about betrayal. Maybe it was about learning to stop begging for decency and start demanding peace. I looked at my reflection that night. Tired. Yes, but lighter, stronger. And as I turned off the lights, I whispered softly to myself, "You didn't lose love. You found yourself,